Owen, Pennsylvania isn't known as a technology hub, but it does seem to be significant for Chinese acquisitions.
Well, Rochelle, as unlikely as it seems, Pennsylvania will mark a milestone in this most complex of trade relationships between China and the US. And there's one particular element in that. As we know, in life, the tiniest things often present the biggest problems. And that's never been truer for this particular part of the trade dynamic. And it's all to do with semiconductors. Wafer thin, but yielding fat returns. This chemical cocktail is used to create semiconductors that run computers. The US invented them, and they're one of its most lucrative exports. It's wafers like this one that are used to create microchips for just about any kind of device you can think of, including the camera we're filming on. The information on them is potentially worth millions of dollars, and that's where things start to get really complicated. Tucked away in rural Pennsylvania, Acrion Systems was recently bought out by China's Nora.
In the next 4 or 5 years, 70 to 80% of the market growth in semiconductor equipment is going to be in China.
And yet this kind of deal was the exception. Donald Trump's administration has rejected scores of Chinese takeovers of US semiconductor manufacturers, amid fears the technology will be used to threaten US companies and the military.
The United States will no longer turn a blind eye to unfair economic practices, including massive intellectual property theft, industrial subsidies, and pervasive state-led economic planning.
China says it's cracking down on intellectual property theft, and Nora Acrion is steering clear of the tensions that constantly threaten a trade war between the world's biggest economies.
Our equipment by no means are a threat to the national security of any country. Our competitors, most of our competitors are foreign-owned, but politics, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't get into the mix of this.
But if the Nora Acrion fusion has been smooth, the trade dynamic can be volatile. After a surge in US investment, Chinese acquisitions have dropped dramatically in the past year. And Rochelle, of course, there's still billions of dollars from China coming into the United States, but as we heard there, that's a pretty big decrease given the state of trade between these two countries. And many analysts are saying that while China might be trying to stop capital flight, it's equally true that there's great uncertainty about this trade relationship, particularly with Donald Trump saying America's open for business. But if Chinese companies try to buy into the United States, there's a good chance that they might be blocked, particularly in this very sensitive sector involving microchips or anything that might allegedly threaten US security. Add on top of that, the Trump administration's inquiry into alleged theft of intellectual property by China, and you start to see the way the wind is blowing under the Trump administration and how difficult it is for companies from China to try and navigate this trade relationship under an America First slogan.